Welcome back. We are happy to have you here with us again for our Southwestern University Admitted Student Virtual Week. Right now, we're going to talk to some of our alumni and current parents. So I'm going to send it over to Grace Pica, and she's going to be our moderator for this session. Enjoy. You there, Grace?
I am. Would you mind starting my video? Oh, perfect. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you are enjoying sunshine wherever you are today. We are excited to talk to you today because we have some really awesome alumni and parents with us that can really speak to what Southwestern is like from a very personal experience. So my name's Grace Josie Pica, and I work in alumni and parent relations. I also went to Southwestern and graduated in 2005, and I've worked here for about 11 years in the Office of Alumni and Parent Relations, and it is truly an honor to get to know our students and their families over the years that they're with us. So I also want to introduce Scott Sandoval, who's here with us from admission. And he is going to join me in moderating this discussion today. And Scott, would you like to say hello?
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Sandoval. I'm Director of Transfer Recruitment. I've been in the admission office here at Southwestern University since 1993, and I'm a Southwestern graduate as well. Do want to welcome everyone. It's great that you're here, and we have some wonderful folks ready to answer your questions. Thank you, Grace.
All right, before we jump to your questions, we want to introduce our panelists. And so we're going to go down the line and let everyone introduce themselves. And they're going to share with us, if they are an alumna, they're going to share with us their class year, their major, the organizations they were involved in as a student, and a little bit about where they are and what they're doing today. So let's start with Angela.
I'll unmute myself. Hello, everybody. My name's Angela Kobos. I'm class of 2002. Grace and I were actually at Southwestern at the same time. We overlapped for a year. Excited to be with you. So I was class of 2002. I was a communications major and a Spanish minor. I did a semester abroad in New York City for my communications major, working for NBC Nightly News, and I spent a summer in Mexico working on my Spanish minor. Two amazing experiences. I was very involved. I was in residence life. I was an RA. I was a head RA. I was in a sorority. I was on the swim team for a year, one of the founding members of the swim team at Southwestern. I was on Student Foundation, just a little bit of everything, honestly. After college, I spent 13 years in higher education, working in student activities, residence life, admissions. Southwestern absolutely formed me into who I was. And then the last 3 years, I have moved back to Texas, moved back home, and now I run a small plastics manufacturing business with my family. So took a complete 180 3 years ago, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Thanks, Angela. Let's jump to Paige.
Sorry, was not quick enough on the draw there. Hello, everyone. I'm so incredibly delighted to be here with you. I'm Paige. I am a 2014 graduate, which feels weird, makes me feel so old. I still feel like I'm one of the young kids, but I'm not anymore. At Southwestern, I, like many Southwestern students, had many interests. So I have a majors in English and education and a minor in race and ethnic studies. And I was actually one of the two students
So it looks like Paige froze up on us a little bit. So if we'll go down the down to the next person on our list is Dr. Siraj, please. Please introduce yourself.
Well, it would help if I unmute myself. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Saroj Rai. Can everyone hear me? Great, excellent. So I'm not an alumni, I'm sad to say, but I have a son who is a class of 2022. So he's a rising junior And just a little background about myself. I'm trained virologist, which you might be quite familiar with that term these days, given what we're facing as a global pandemic. So that is my training. I'm a research scientist and trained as a virologist. Currently, more specifically, I do immunology related work in cancer surveillance and research. I work for the state of Texas Department of Health. So you can imagine it is a quite busy time for us. And I might be called for another Zoom meeting because I just was told, I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I have 2 phones that are going off because we are rapidly responding to the pandemic that we have going on. And when you work for the whole health department, one of our contracts we sign is that you will do what's needed during a pandemic time. So we are under one of those times, and it is my training. So I'm honored and privileged to serve the state. So if I get suddenly pulled away, my apologies in advance. And my husband was supposed to be here as well, but he also works for the state. And he we just have unpredictable schedules, so apologies. But aside from that, we are a very honored and privileged parent of Southwestern rising senior. His name is Samir. He is nearly completing his 2nd year, and he's been home just like everybody else for the last several weeks. And I can tell you he misses the campus every day. And the motto in our house is nerds are us, and indeed he loves going to school. He misses his professors. He misses just being the campus, and there's literally not a day that has gone by that he has said that he just wish he was on campus. So hopefully those that are considering and thinking about joining, you can see that as a testament to how great the campus is. But as a parent, my son also is studying physics. He wants to be an astrophysicist, just as a background. I think we have been, I don't have enough accolades and adjectives to describe how supportive community the university is. And I wish, like Paige and Angela, that I were an alumni myself, because it sounds like a fantastic experience that you both have had, and as my son is having. So I'll stop there, and I know we'll have some Q&A time later on.
Great, let's jump over to Alice.
Hi, my name is Alice Dorsey. So I graduated in '95 and majored in sociology. And so this year, I have a sophomore who is actually suite mates freshman year with Samir. So Carson actually got a lot of great mentoring from Siraj. Back when he still was majoring in chemistry. He's now switched over and is pursuing a business major. I was in a sorority. Carson has chosen also to do the Greek thing and gets a lot of enjoyment from that. And then we also, so one of our other kids is actually going to start in the fall, hopefully. I mean, she will start whether she's on campus or not. That's the hopefully part.
Thank you, Alice. And yes, we absolutely are all diving in headfirst to the fall semester with every hope that we will all be here. It is absolutely our plan to have students here on campus with us in the fall. And of course, we'll be working with all of the good folks at our health agencies to make sure that we're taking good care of our pirates and doing the right thing. But absolutely our plan to forge ahead. So let's circle back to Paige. I think she's back with us.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've got about 7 people using the bandwidth in my in my house. So I yelled at everybody, get off the games. But I'll try to be quick here. Again, Paige, 2014 grad, English education double major and a minor in race and ethnic studies. After I left Southwestern, I went to law school at the University of Texas. I was really proud to do that. So born in Dallas, I'm a lifelong Texan. I live in Austin now. As an attorney, I am living my dream, honestly. I'm a civil rights lawyer with a focus on education law. I've gotten permission to share that, one of my very first clients actually was my alma mater, Southwestern, and which is just a really incredible privilege. I spend most of my days working on behalf of educational institutions and doing a lot of work around civil rights advocacy, and have a very robust pro bono practice in the civil rights space too. When I was at Southwestern, I was, as I'm sure this will make Grace laugh because she knows I was overly involved, like many students. The most notable, I think, aspects of that were I was a women's soccer team player, so I was recruited. Actually, that was how I came to Southwestern and learned about it. I was the editor-in-chief of the Megaphone, which is one of my favorite things I did. Spent a lot of time there. As actually the very first African-American editor-in-chief of the Megaphone. I was really proud of that accomplishment. And then did lots of other things. I was also a Student Foundation member. I was really involved with university governance and diversity initiatives and other things. So I'm happy to go into that more in detail if anyone has questions.
Thanks, Paige. It doesn't surprise me at all that you have a very active pro bono practice.
It's what I do.
and very much a characteristic of our Southwestern alumni in general. So that's awesome. So I want to tell everyone who is on this virtual panel as a viewer that you can start chatting in your questions for our awesome panelists anytime you're ready. And oh, I already see things popping up. So good job, y'all. Just keep them coming. And then we will also have a few questions that we're going to start out with that we think might also provide some helpful insights for everyone. So let's see, we're going to start with Alice. And a question that we'd like to know, Carson's wrapping up his second year. What has been a real highlight for Carson since starting at Southwestern?
I would narrow it down to 2 highlights for him because he's already had some great experiences. One, he's kind of a STEM guy and languages are not his forte. So he got the opportunity last summer to complete Spanish 2 and Spanish 3 credits in Argentina. And so that was really fun for him. I think it really helped him grow up a lot to be in the middle of this huge city where, the language was unfamiliar to him and he was there to learn it and, take their public transportation and, you learn from an Argentinian professor and all that comes with living in a foreign country. Not to mention the fact that it was a huge city. So that was a really good experience for him. And the other thing was actually first semester, his freshman year, his first year seminar was he's a guy, he likes to eat. So he chose, I think it was called French, Food, Health, and French Culture. And he still talks about that class. It was taught by a French professor, someone he would never take a class from normally. And he loved that class. He felt really engaged by that class. And that was definitely a highlight for him too.
Thanks, Alice. So let's go ahead and jump to some of our panelists, other panelists, and some of the questions that are coming in from attendees. This is a great question that I think Angela might be able to help us out with. And then also I think Scott may be able to chime in after Angela. Do many graduates get job offers and opportunities outside of Texas?
Good question. My first job was in Louisiana. I swore as a native Texan that I would never move out of Texas, ever, ever, ever. I love this place. That was never something when I was in high school I ever thought I would do. And Southwestern really, through both of my internships and my study abroad, really taught me that I could live on my own, that I had the ability to, I lived in New York City for 3.5 months and I made it. I was alive. It was amazing. So Alice, I very much understand what your son went through as well. It's those kinds of experiences that Southwestern gives you that taught me that I could live outside of Texas if that was something that I chose to do. Texas, Louisiana, North Carolina, moved to Kentucky, back to North Carolina, and then back to Texas. And so it's been a wonderful, I'm thankful for all of the experiences that I've had. the jobs, I think honestly it allows, Southwestern education allows you to move anywhere you want to. The skills are so transferable, the ability to think critically and the ability to think on your own and to move into any kind of job and adapt is absolutely something I learned every single day. In every single class I took, we talked about civil discourse. I learned about mediation in my residence life staff positions. I mean, all the things that teach you to be a good colleague, a good employee is what you learn at Southwestern. And so I was successful everywhere I've gone because of those skills. Jobs, if you want to move out of Texas, you're absolutely going to be able to do that. If you want to stay in Texas, you're going to be able to do that too. Really, honestly, the world's your oyster and you can go wherever you want to. I just encourage you at Southwestern, take advantage of those opportunities as you're given them, to be able to learn and think and travel and go places you've never been before, and work with people you would never think that you would work with. It's so many opportunities. I highly encourage taking advantage of those.
Thank you. And Scott, do you also want to chime in on that question?
Yeah, being on the admission side, we get this question a lot, and I think like Angela mentioned, you can go wherever you want. If you love Texas, you want to stay in Texas, that's certainly something that you can do. But when we talk to our career and professional development office, there are folks that are going to grad school all over the country, not just staying in Texas. Probably a wonderful time to kind of get out and explore. And I think jobs just where you're looking. If you want to end up in San Francisco, that's been one of your dreams, and you can go do that. New York, I've worked with so many students over the years that once they've graduated have gone off and done some wonderful things. And even folks that I went to school with in 1991 that took jobs out of state right out of college. So definitely a possibility for sure.
Can I add something to that, Grace?
Of course.
I just want to highlight, I mean, from the career point, Southwestern, and I can say this from a statistical standpoint and like a personal standpoint, we have one of the greatest career services offices literally in the country. I mean, I forget the number. I think it's been #1 at some point, but it's just consistently awarded and recognized for the excellent levels of service. And man, I abused that office. I was really, really close to a lot of folks there. And I can just speak personally to how helpful and the breadth of the connections, both in Central Texas because of the proximity of the university, but just all over the country. And I just know that it's an amazing resource that, you know, other colleges and universities, when I have clients that are asking, you know, how can we build a career services? I'm like, you got to go talk to the people at Southwestern, because it really is a model resource and it's a great value that you get if you come to Southwestern.
Thank you, Paige. So we're going to jump back to Scott, and it may be a little bit too early to know these facts and figures for this year, but in general, could you talk to us about the student body? What percentage come from out of state? What percentage come from Texas? And keeping in mind that we still have a little bit of time before the deadline deposit for this coming fall.
Yes, generally, over the last few years, we've seen our out-of-state population growing in our first-year classes. I think we're getting real close to about a 15%, sorry, 50% would be wonderful, but 15% of our students coming from outside of Texas. I want to kind of define that a little bit, or put that into some context, in that Texas is a huge, huge state. Doing a little research, we found that Dalhart, Texas, up in the Panhandle, is closer to Bismarck, North Dakota than it is to Brownsville, Texas, and Brownsville, Texas is closer to Cancun, Mexico than it is to Dalhart. And if you even go side to side, El Paso's closer to Los Angeles than it is to Port Arthur, Texas, and Port Arthur's closer to like, I forget the city in Florida, but it's kind of, you can kind of get some context there. So we really feel that even though it might be 15%, that student coming from Lubbock or El Paso or McAllen, Texas, or Corpus Christi or Tyler, it's like they're coming from other states. I mean, if we were anywhere else in the United States, we would be recruiting heavily based on what we get. We'd be recruiting heavily out of state based on that, for sure.
Thanks, Scott. All right, let's jump over to our parents on the panel. So we might start with Alice. What is your son's opinion of life in the residence halls at Southwestern?
There we go. So he lived his first year in Maybe, which is, I can see people who lived in Maybe. When I was there, it was brand new and it was for upperclassmen only. So to me, it's funny that it's a freshman dorm now. He was in what's called a quad, and so there were 4 bedrooms that centered around a like a shared living room, and then 2 bathrooms that the 4 bedrooms shared. And I think he liked it just fine. I think he slept a lot because, you know, I think it was just all new to him, and he you know, it's nice and cold and quiet, and he could do that. But I think that was great that he had 7 guys that were instant friends, including Samir, that he could instantly know. And I think Katie is ranking, or gonna try to rank Brown Cody as where she wants to live. And I was in Kurth, which I loved that all-female experience my first year. And right now, Carson's living in a fraternity house, so he's not in a residence hall right now.
Thanks, Alice.
Sure.
Saroj, are you still with us? She may have had to jump off.
No, I am here. I'm here.
Thank you. Saroj, could you share with us a little bit about your impressions of life in the residence halls?
Yeah, sure. So as Alice was mentioning, Carson and Samir shared the quad with, you know, themselves and 7 other boys. So it was great. Samir had a fantastic experience at Maybe. He still reminisces about that. And as Alice mentioned, they instantly made 7 friends when they went there. And I know for several weeks they would hang out. I would see them. I would sneak behind because I live not too far from the campus, and I would see them hanging out. So it was really, for me as a parent, I was relieved to know that they, you know, they made friends easily, and they looked after each other. In fact, some of the guys would mention that specifically. Don't worry, Dr. Rai, we got our each other's back. So that was really reassuring for me. And this year he's been at Herman Brown, if I'm recalling correctly, and that's been a great experience. Next year he still plans to live, and I think it's Lord's Hall where he's signed up, but it's been excellent. We have had no complaints, no issues, and we had some minor issue that we talked to the resident hall director, and it was immediately taken care of without any hiccups. And he's scheduled to be in London, study abroad this coming fall. So we are very excited and hoping that he will get to have the experience, you know, of living abroad and learning and growing from that wonderful experience.
Thank you, Saroj. So I want to jump over to something that Paige just mentioned on our private chat, which is that the roommates in that first year can be so influential. And I'd love for you to share that little anecdote, Paige.
Sure. I was just laughing because we all are so excited. We heard about Maybe. I lived there my first year, and I didn't have no one when I came to Southwestern. So I had a random roommate assignment, and it turns out, you know, 4 years later, 2 of my 5 bridesmaids, I got married a couple of years ago, were some of my quad mates and Maybe. And so it's a real testament. And a third one was a roommate in a different residence hall at Southwestern, or on-campus apartment. So it just gives a testament to show kind of how important that first year is when you're living with those people. Those are relationships that have literally stayed with me at, 10 years almost now. So it's really, really special.
Thank you. All right, we are going to jump over to a question for, let's see. Actually, Paige, let's stay with you. I want to ask you about your relationship with your professors and how that shaped your experience at Southwestern.
Oh gosh, we don't have enough time for me to talk about that. So they were amazing. And I mean, in a word, I mean, I think every, to a person, every graduate student at Southwestern will tell you that we just have the most phenomenal faculty, most transforming experiences. And it goes well beyond sort of, academics. I mean, these are people who we had, deep, serious intellectual conversations with, we had emotional conversations with, we were able to connect in ways that, you just don't get that sort of access if you go to a larger institution. All of our classes were fairly, small and intimate. So that was just, by definition, by the very fact of the structure that happens, but just the people are amazing. And it has, it literally transformed my career. I mean, I came to Southwestern thinking that I was going to be an elementary school teacher and soccer coach. And that's, I was doing the double major thing. I was doing the certification track. And I had several faculty members who just looked at me and said, Paige, being a teacher is really important. It's a great profession, but we really think you're capable of so much more than that. And it had never occurred to me to go to law school or to do anything kind of bigger than what I was planning on doing. And I was a planner. And several faculty members reached in and kind of saw potential in me and did really meaningful things to kind of propel that trajectory. So an anecdote I love to share is about one of my favorite professors, Dr. Jim Kilfoyle, who's an English professor who I took several classes with. And it's a great just Southwestern story. He just so happened to be next door neighbors with a guy who turns out he was the chief of staff for a sitting state senator. And that state senator was looking for a part-time unpaid intern and went to Dr. Kilfoyle. I mean, literally they were just talking on their front lawn, said, I need an intern. Do you have any recommendations? Dr. Kilfoyle knew that, he needed to find a student. He came to me and said, do you think this is something you want to, explore? And I said, sure, why not? It'll be fun. That senator was sitting on the education committee. So I thought that will be a good experience, have a perspective to inform my teaching career. And I did this, 6-week unpaid internship over the summer, and that turned into a semester-long paid job at the Capitol during a legislative session. And that turned into a recommendation letter to then, come back for another position for another state senator. And that turned into an application for law school. And to kind of bring it full circle, that next door neighbor who lived next door to Dr. Kilfoyle is Ray Martinez, who is also a Southwestern alum. And so it's just this perfect circle of interconnectedness that I think is just so representative of the Southwestern experience. And to make it even more ironic, Ray is now my client. So Southwestern keeps on giving from my perspective. And a big part of that is, the willingness of faculty to go above and beyond for their students.
Grace, can I jump in for a second?
Of course.
So we've heard Brown Cody mentioned, Maybe mentioned, Herman Brown, the Lord Center. I want to kind of just chat a little bit about Reuter Hall, which some folks out there may be looking into Reuter. I lived in Reuter, which means that residence hall has been around for a while. I absolutely loved it. I think everybody that lives there loves it. It may not show as well as some of the other halls in the tour, but it's just kind of this open door environment. It's a classic dormitory with restrooms at the center of the halls and individual showers and everything else. But it was just one of those places that lent itself to everyone having open doors, having to walk up and down the hallways, going up and down the stairs, and a little raucous and a little rowdy, but you can go study in the library. But I just want to kind of point that out. It's a great place to build community very, very quickly. And if you have a chance to live in Reuter, please consider it. It's great.
We do hear the best stories from our Reuter alumni, for sure. So it's definitely a culture of its own that our students that live there, it's like a special badge that they carry with them. So I would like to jump, kind of jumping off from what Paige was talking about with these special connections at Southwestern. I think here on campus, we really do have a culture of personal connection. And so I'd like to talk about some of the campus resources that we have that students can make use of. Those services right now, even despite the fact that our students are learning at a distance, are still in full operation because Southwestern is very committed to providing the support that students need regardless of what that is and where they are. So I'd love to hear from Saroj. If you could share with us a little bit about how Samir has experienced the campus offices and support system since he's been here.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. I think he's used probably quite a few of them. Some of them I'm aware and some of them I may not be, but he talks about, the ones he talks about, I'll share those with you. One that he uses extensively is the academic success department. And if I'm allowed to rave and give praise and thanks and my gratefulness to Jennifer Small, she is his I guess assigned person that he has been working with since day one. And I think he had a discussion with her today, and as he does every week. And he has some special accommodations for testing, and she helps facilitates that through you know, along with his faculty, the professors, the classes he takes every semester. And she has been absolute lifeline for him. I think she knows more about him than we do at times. And sometimes I have to reach out to Jennifer to ask to say, hey, what did he decide for this semester or that semester? In fact, I did reach out to her today. I'm like, what is he registering for in the fall? But that has been one area that, you know, I know I have spent many years in my career at university settings, either being a student or being a staff, and it's a small team and that academic success, but boy, do they deliver to the students. And if there was one single aspect I would have to call out, that would be that team. They have been since, I think even when we were at this stage where all the students are right now, a couple of years ago, that's the first group we met, and because we knew he would have to take the test away from the classroom setting, and they have just been absolutely superb, and we are so grateful. So that's just one big example. I know he uses the writing center as well quite a bit. You know, I think somebody else mentioned earlier, the numbers come easier to him than words, and or he likes to do more numbers, and hence he's chosen the right path being a physicist. And so he uses the writing center quite a bit, and that's been, they're tremendous and very helpful. So I know I'm aware of those two resources that he uses. I know he also used the medical clinic. I think first year he was there, he got sick, so they were very helpful. So we have been so grateful for all the resources and the efficiency and the effectiveness of the responses that he receives. At least we have heard from him and firsthand. So thank you. We're very grateful.
Thank you. And academic success is probably our most amazing resource on campus. I mean, I really cannot say enough about them either. Whether it's students who are really asking questions about their major, the curriculum, their plan for their 4 years, that is a great resource. If they need academic support, like maybe a student comes in and they haven't had the best study habits in high school, maybe they haven't needed to have the best study habits. They work so much with students on developing time management, and other skills like that that are critical to success in, at the university level. Really, you name it, they are willing to help with it. So they are awesome. So you mentioned also the Debbie Ellis Writing Center, which is located in our library, which is open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, I believe. And a great question came in about, where did you all spend your time studying? What were your favorite study spots? So let's hear from our alumni. Let's start with Angela on that.
I'll be honest, I was not the most studious of college students. My room, honestly, and as an RA, you are given a double room at a single price. I'm sorry. A single room at the double price. I got that backwards, sorry. And so I always was able to, because of that, have my own room. And so my room was my haven for studying. And I lived Brown Cody, Kurth, maybe. I lived in all three of those buildings. And the environment is very, for me, I was always able to study in my residence hall room. I never had any issues with that. Library occasionally, and I definitely use the writing center. No question about that. That was definitely helpful.
Cool, thanks. Paige, where were your study spots?
Well, I had very boisterous roommates, to say at the very least. And so my room was not usually, I mean, I guess when I was later, you know, junior and senior, I probably studied in my room more. But my favorite places, I actually was a consultant in the Writing Center. So I spent a lot of time, back then it was in the Mood building, which is to this day my absolute favorite building. I adored. I tear up thinking about it when I'm on campus. I go and stand in the atrium because it just makes me feel like I'm at home. And so I actually spent a ton of time in that building. That was my go-to place. You know, I can still remember kind of, you go in the late afternoon, I had a very specific table. The sun came in and hit it in just the right place. So it's kind of silly, but I genuinely feel that way about it. And besides that building, I spent a lot of time studying outside. I mean, Southwestern's a beautiful campus, and we're, you know, fortunate in Central Texas to have great weather a lot of the year. And so spent a lot of time laying out on the lawn when it was able. And the last thing I'll say is I was a student athlete. So truth, if I'm being really honest, I spent a lot of time studying on the road and on buses and on planes or in the locker room before a big match. So you can do it all, and there's just lots of great options.
Thank you. Alice, any favorite spots for you?
I did. I remember studying a lot my freshman year. After that, I don't know if I studied, but yeah, freshman year. So I mentioned before that maybe was brand new my freshman year. And so there were these study carrels, they call them fish bowls because they're all, you know, glass sides. But they had a nice desk and, you know, nice new chairs. And so I would go from my dorm in Kurth and connect through the lobby and go into those study carrels. And then also the library, because, you know, there's floor to ceiling windows, get a nice quiet space on the third floor, and you're just looking out over the trees and with a floor to ceiling window, and it's pretty quiet and chill and no distractions up there. But after my freshman year, I hope I studied, but I'm sure I did. I just don't remember my spots.
All right, thanks, Alice. Okay, great. Let's move on to another question. Let's talk about the weekends. So let's maybe start, actually, Alice, since you're on the line, let's start with you, since your son is a current student and you are really ingrained in that sort of current experience right now. What happens on the weekends? Do students stay on campus? Do they leave? What is there to do on the weekends? How has that worked out for Carson?
I mean, he's totally happy. You know, since he's in a fraternity, he does hang out there all the time. But if there's not a party that weekend, they're, you know, just hanging out together and playing, you know, I don't know, I can't remember what they're called. They're the games they do outside with frisbees or whatever, ultimate frisbee maybe. You know, doing that outside and maybe going out for fast foods and to get off campus a little bit. I know some, you know, lots of families maybe live in Round Rock or Austin, and so maybe somebody will run home for just the day or the night, but mostly it's everybody staying on campus. Yeah, so I mean, he has a great time, and I think it flies by the weekend.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
Saroj, what about from your experience? What do you hear about the weekend life?
Yeah, so the weekend life is busy studying, which I do encourage. There's a time to do that, and the weekend is a good time to make sure. So we quite encourage that. Along with that, yeah, I know Samir has a group of friends that they make a routine of eating not in the cafeteria at least once on the weekend, and we see that on the credit card bills. And so we encourage that because I think it's good. Georgetown is a great community, and they have 2 restaurants, at least from the bills that we look at, that we see he rotates with friends. There's one like seafood restaurant that he eats at, but he very much looks forward to that. I know some of the hangouts they have done. They have organized and 6, 7 kids and gone out. Sorry, they're kids to students, they're kids to me, and gone out, done bowling. I know one of the things, because since somebody wants to be an astrophysicist, he enjoys doing is there's the observatory, the telescope is there, and in this semester, I know specifically he has gone out with a couple of friends and on the weekends, and obviously you have to do in the night. And really, he very much enjoys that, and that that's his favorite thing to do as a hobby and as a profession. So he has recruited some friends who are non-astrophysicists and enjoys and gives them, a little overview and a little tour of that. So we do live a little close by, so he does like to come home a little bit sometimes for Indian food, and mom doesn't mind that either. So it's a good balance.
Absolutely. We do have a lot of activities on the weekend. I can't tell you how much fun it is to go to a Friday night or Saturday night soccer game under the lights, or a basketball game in the winter, when you've got, tons of students packing in the gym. Nothing is better than a really close game against Trinity. To get all the Pirates out to cheer at whatever game that may be. Obviously, we have football games. So athletics brings a lot of activity to the weekends, as does our student life staff. They really plan a lot of great programming on the weekends. They bring in musical acts, comedians, paint parties, right, where everybody's painting the same thing and all working side by side. So, there really is a lot to do on the weekends. And as it was mentioned, Georgetown is a really vibrant community. When I think of my life at Southwestern in the early 2000s, it has changed dramatically as far as the options for our students right here in town. And I think a lot of our students do take advantage of the weekends to get out and enjoy a meal or go to a local festival, whatever it may be. Did anybody else want to chime in on that topic? Oh yeah, Scott, thanks.
Yeah, Grace, I also want to add that Georgetown has a wonderful, wonderful park system. The park, San Gabriel Park's not too far away from the Southwestern campus. Nice little walk or bike ride down there, but there's a hike and bike trail that goes from that park all the way through downtown Georgetown, basically all the way out to the lake. And so, on a day like today where it's beautiful and about 85 degrees outside, you would have students out there all day long taking in the sun, and also even stopping off at Blue Hole, which is a little swimming spot that lots of folks in Georgetown like to go to. And it's a nice little spot. They've done a great job of fixing that up and making it a very kind of pedestrian friendly area. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm happy. I was going to just add, Georgetown is awesome, and there's lots of fun things to do, and increasingly so. But one of my favorite things about being in Georgetown and living in Georgetown is that it's actually really close to Austin. And I found as a student, and my parents found this very comforting too, that it was close enough to Austin where you could do all the really fun Austin things, but it was far enough away to where you couldn't get into the sort of trouble the UT students got into. And by that I mean you always had to have a plan. You had to have someone who could drive. You had to have someone designated. You had to have kind of the schedule, and so it was always really great to be able to access the fun festivals and restaurants and nightlife that Austin offers. But then always kind of having the solace of this campus and Georgetown acquired a community, and that was always a really nice balance.
I'll pipe in on that too. Carson has really enjoyed going to Austin City Limits Festival, but then having a home to come home to, a nice quiet place to come home to. And, obviously Austin's been a fun destination since even I was in school. So yeah, it's a great resource especially for music and shopping.
Yes, we in Georgetown really do feel like we have the best of both worlds here. And so speaking of Austin, we had a question about how students get to and from the Austin airport. And from campus, the airport is actually a really quick drive on what we have here is the 130 toll road. It is very efficient. It takes about, I'd say 40 minutes to drive there, 35, 40 minutes. and the Austin airport is super manageable as far as getting through security. It's very efficient. I'm always pleasantly surprised, even at peak travel times, how quickly I get through the process at the Austin airport. So we're very lucky to have that as a resource. We don't have an official school shuttle. We actually ran a survey earlier this year of Southwestern parents through our monthly newsletter. And we do this little quick parent poll each month. And one of the questions was, how does your student get to and from the airport? And we found that by and large, students are using their friends to hitch a ride, right? You know, it doesn't take much to convince a friend to do a quick drive off campus down to the airport. And so that is the primary way that our students are getting to and from the airport, if not utilizing their own car and parking there, they're using a friend. But in addition to that, Georgetown does have a local airport flash service that can take students to and from the airport, in addition to the ride sharing apps that are out there. So our students seem to find a way pretty easily to get to and from Austin. Within Georgetown, we do have a bus service, which is a great resource for students, whether or not they have a car on campus. It goes all over town, really, to all of the convenient locations, whether that's medical facilities, shopping, the grocery store. The park that Scott was mentioning, San Gabriel Park, also has a really nice recreation center, and the bus stops there as well. And there are 2 stops on campus, and it is free for students. So definitely a lot of options for students to get around town if they do not bring a car with them. And on that topic, we had a question about the megabus. There is a megabus stop in Austin, and I do hear from students that they use it, especially those who live in the other metro areas in Texas. In addition to megabus, I've heard of a lot of students starting to dip their toes in the water on Vaughn Lane, which is another bus service. It's kind of the luxury bus, if you will, where you have internet service and I think there's attendance. I've been very curious about this myself, but for those in Dallas and Houston, it sounds like a convenient option. Even for those who have cars here in Georgetown, just for safety reasons, oftentimes parents would rather their student hop on the megabus to get back home for a weekend or a short break, just so that they're not having to drive themselves. All right, so let's jump back to residence halls. I know this is always a popular topic among parents because there's just so much anticipation about what that experience will be like. And the question is, you know, is the structure of each hall quite different? And maybe that structure as in layout, but also maybe a little bit in like the culture that happens in those halls. I might throw this to Scott to first talk about maybe a quick review of those first year options and what those layouts are in kind of a broad sense.
Sure. We'll start with Mabee Hall. That's been around since the 80s, I think maybe late 80s. And it is kind of, well, they're different configurations, but mostly it's suite style living. And there are some kind of quadded rooms where you have a common area as you walk in, and then you'll have 4 rooms. 2 rooms each 2 rooms share a restroom. And so it's a nice little kind of quasi almost apartment style living, it seems, or it feels like. And as somebody mentioned earlier, it used to be kind of where our seniors lived before we started building apartments on campus. Brown Cody, it's a beautiful residence hall. I think that was built around 1998, and it's got these long hallways, and it's these wonderful kind of suites as well. 2 rooms share a restroom, and you know, just another wonderful kind of place to live. Nice views if you're on the 3rd floor of the Texas Hill Country as well. Sorry, I'm rubbing on the cat who wants to get up on my lap. I think Kurth is an option as well. Kurth has been around since the 60s. It's been remodeled a few times, and we finally painted the wooden walls and brightened up the place a little bit. It looks really nice. And actually, there's a lobby that connects all 3 of those all 3 of those residence halls, or 2 of them, Kurth and Mabee. And that was updated this year too, and it looks really, really nice. And then we have Reuter on the other side, and I talked about Reuter a little bit already, but I know that some of these folks lived in these residence halls, so it might be nice to hear from some of them as well.
Did anyone here live in Brown Cody?
I did. It was open the year before I started, so I was its second year at Southwestern. And it's a beautiful building. Long hallways, like Scott was talking about. Shared, so 4 people share a bathroom, 2 sets of rooms. It's where I learned that I wanted to be in residence life. I'll put a little plug in. As somebody who worked in residence life for many, many years, the best thing to know about picking a good roommate is habits. So if you've never met somebody before and you want to live with them for a year, make it well, make sure you fill out your room form very accurately. So if you're not a late night person, don't put I stay up till midnight every night, because it's about habits. If you're really messy and your roommate's really neat, you're not going to like each other very much. If you study at 2 a.m. and your roommate gets up at 6 a.m., you guys aren't going to like each other very much. And so that's one thing about Southwestern is great, is you learn communication skills. My RA stepped in with my roommate and I and was like, all right, let's talk. And that was the first time I'd ever had to have a difficult conversation, and I really learned a lot in that as an 18-year-old of how to have that conversation. So, but back to the residence halls, Brown Cody's wonderful. Kurth, to me, was probably my favorite place I ever lived. The hallways are kind of shorter, so it's only about 30 students, maybe 35 students per floor. And we were on 3rd floor. See, you remember the places you live, 3rd floor, and we had the best community, and everybody knew everybody, and we were in each other's rooms, and everybody, I'm sure all of us alumni can talk about all those stories. I loved Maybe for the cool quads. Those are so neat, and the little communal spaces that you have, the little living rooms, those are really fun. So really every building kind of has its own feel, and I'd say take a tour, see which one you like best, hope for the best, put your application in, make sure you tell them all of your habits, honestly, and hope for a good roommate pair. And even if you don't get a great roommate pair the first time, talk to your RA, they'll help you work it out. That is part of their job, is to help you through that process.
Yeah, great advice for students when they fill out that housing application, to not be so much aspirational, but very much a realist on those forms. And I think that students will have some opportunities maybe for some interaction, even virtually this summer, to get to see some of the residence halls. And so there are also some pictures online for parents and students to view, and encourage you all to check that out. Oh, and speaking of, is there a virtual tour of residence halls on the website? Great question. There are quite a few pictures. There is not like a 360 view kind of thing at this moment that I'm aware of, but I do know that our residence life staff is actually working on getting some more in-depth virtual tours up, since we will have limited visits this spring and early summer to campus. Scott, anything else you want to jump in on that topic?
Yes, so I think on our website, we have kind of a virtual visit virtually page, and it's got all kinds of videos up there. And I think we did manage, and Laura can help me out here, but I think we did manage to get some residence life tours in there. We've got some students talking about the rooms, and we actually have a camera pan and kind of show the layouts of the rooms a little bit. Laura, am I missing anything?
No, Scott, you did a great job, and Grace, you too. Yes, we're going to have more in-depth tours of those, since obviously, unfortunately, students can't get to campus right now. Thanks.
Great. Well, I know that we're getting really close to the end of our time together. I see one last question, which we'll take a quick jump at, and then we will say goodbye. Easy or difficult to schedule classes so that a student does not have early morning classes? Laura or Scott, y'all want to jump in and then close us out?
Yeah, I'll jump in and Laura can kind of close us out since she's the lead moderator, I guess, for all activities this week. Yeah, I think it's more difficult if you don't want to take courses in the morning. I feel like so many of our courses these days seem to be sandwiched between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock p.m. and not so much the 8 and 9 o'clock hour anymore. So it becomes a little more problematic and a little more difficult to do that. I also feel that we might have some professors that don't like teaching at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's why so much of this kind of gets truncated. And then we also have some different kinds of schedules now. We have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday courses. We have Tuesday, Thursday, and now a lot of Monday, Wednesday courses. So morning classes will likely be a part of the routine here at Southwestern.
Scott, you did a great job answering that. And I agree. I think our academic schedule has changed. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. This was a wonderful, wonderful part of our week. We do need to take a little longer break right now, and ironically, that's because of our adjusted academic schedule right now, with our classes being virtual. So we will be back here at 5:15 for our student panel. So we're gonna have a brief intermission, and we will see you soon. Thanks.